Welcome back. You're watching The Right Stuff. I'm Veronique Mandal. Now, before the break, Marty Gervais and I were talking about his career as a writer and author and journalist. All of that takes us now to Marty's other life as a publisher and other things, including, as we mentioned, poet laureate. Mm-hmm. And you know, I was thinking, we spent so little time on your book. I wanted to know, where did all of this come from? It's a very personal book, isn't it?
It is, and when I became poet laureate in 2011, one of the things they asked me was what I would do as a poet laureate. I mean, they don't oblige me to do poems on occasions or anything like that, although I have, because I've offered to do them. So the book is very personal, but it's also a personal vision of the history of Essex County and Windsor, because that was kind of my mandate, was to say, I wanted to tell the story of our neighborhood. And so a lot of the poems in this collection have to do with historical events, but not in the kind of academic sense, more in terms of the story behind the story, the curiosities that exist among the personalities and the places and the events. And that's what I was interested in.
And I love that sense of being on the farm and that very sort of family-oriented aspect. And so many people in Essex County and our whole area would identify with some of the descriptions you have in here.
See, I always felt that people have, some people who come down here from Toronto or wherever, and they see the flat open landscape and they think, oh, it's such a boring landscape. To me, it's a gorgeous landscape. And my mother grew up on the farm outside of Stony Point, for example, and I went there as a boy many, many times, and there's a whole French community, and she came from that French community background. And to me, this flat open landscape is beautiful, and it's open, and it's clean, and it's so lyrical. It sends a kind of a lyrical signal to me all the time, and I love driving through it.
Some of the poems are sort of very poignant about the deaths in your family, but there's some very funny. The Old Man's War.
Right.
That's hilarious. Tell me about that.
Let me take a look at this one.
You went into a bookshop.
Yeah, what it was when I was younger, my mother taught me a lot about the French language, and she helped me in school. And so I started reading books in French. And what happened was I'd gone to see an optometrist, and they had dropped these drops in my eyes, and I was blurry visioned, and I went into the bookshop, and I was trying to buy this book. It was in French. And I was staring at it. I had it so close to my face. And the man in the bookshop thought I was blind. And no matter how much I protested, this is what he figured. And that's where it comes from. So it's a little bit like a Seinfeld episode in a certain sense. But
how long did it take you to write the book? I'm just going to have a look at a couple of others that I really liked here.
Well, I think since 2011 until just recently. And I'm not sure how many poems John B. Lee was who's a poet laureate for Port Dover and Brantford, and he did the editing on this book. So he rejected some poems and offered suggestions for others. But since 2011, and I just felt it was time, for me to put these poems together, tell Windsor's story. I think we have such a fabulous story. People don't know of the wonderful, curious little stories that exist out there. And we need to tell them, we need to share them, and we need to let the world know about them. Because we have such a point of view about ourselves that's a little lower. Like, we don't believe that anyone from Windsor could ever achieve anything great. But we do all the time.
Yes, and there have been extraordinary writers from this area.
Oh, absolutely.
What would you say was has been the highlight of your time as a poet laureate? And maybe tell people what a poet laureate is.
Well, the idea of the poet laureate is that someone would represent culture. in the city, represented with poetry. And so essentially I decided to tell the story of our community. But a highlight for me was poetry at the Manor. And we've done it 3 times, and we get a large, audience for it. And we bring together poets laureate from all across the country. And they came in from the first year that we did it. They came in from the East Coast, the West Coast, from the prairies, from all over the country. And they come and they bring a dimension of their community to Windsor. But at the same time, we get to host them, we get to wine and dine them, and we get them to show Windsor to them, and so that they can leave with that in mind, and they have a great time, and we have terrific crowds. I mean, you would think that, the stereotype is that poetry is elitist. It's only for a select group of people. We get standing room only crowds at Poetry at the Manor, and what a wonderful place to do it, and this wonderful house or mansion, that exists in the center of Windsor.
You're not only a writer, but a publisher. Mm-hmm. Now, publishing's not for the faint of heart. Mm-hmm. How did you get started?
Well, I mentioned earlier, like, for example, when I used to meet with the Parliament Street Library poets and writers. They weren't all poets. Some of them wrote prose as well. And there were 2 or 3 people in this group who weren't getting published. And I certainly didn't have the wherewithal to publish. But we started out, there was a school teacher who was part of this group. And so we immediately, went with her to the local high school where she taught, and we used the Gestetner, a mimeograph machine. And originally we were going to call, my press is called Black Moss Press, mm-hmm. but originally it was called Bandit Press because we were basically pilfering all the paper and the ink and using mimeograph. So I was publishing a little magazine called Black Moss. And I was publishing.
Where's Black Moss from?
Well, it was kind of like a Northern Ontario kind of image.
Not green moss, black moss.
Yeah, black moss. And I don't know. It was. We had to think of a name quickly because someone was coming into the office, and we had to. So we just we'll call it Black Moss, and we ran off the stuff on the Gestetner, and I published some of these people who. Some of them have gone on to win the Governor General's Award. And, but I don't know why I felt that responsibility. I wasn't getting published, but I published their work. And we had a lot of fun doing it. And I didn't know whether it would last. And it wasn't until I got married, actually, and we were on...
Did you come into money?
Well, no, we didn't come into money, but I had a very supportive wife, Donna, who we had this little attic apartment on Dougal Avenue in Windsor, and that's really where the birth of the magazine and publishing started. And I decided to do books, small books. Again, they were folded and stapled and little chapbooks. But eventually, we went to proper printer and we did it right. And that's where Black Moss started 40-some years ago. So.
It's really difficult for people, for writers to get published. I mean, there are only a certain number of books published all the time. And I know from reading many of the books from the people we have had on the show and will have on the show, there are some really good writers. And I mean, and I know myself. What advice do you have for writers? You know, you talk about sending out your poetry and, you know, I mean, I could paper 2 houses with rejection slips, but you never stop sending it out.
No, I mean, there's so many stories of people who, I mean, Nino Ricci sent out his first book, Lives of the Saints, to, I don't know, 13 or 14 publishers, all of whom rejected it. And finally, someone took the book, and you know, the rest is history. He's won the Governor General's Award. He's won major awards and acclamation all across the country. So never give up. I think my advice is find someone who will be critical and honest with you about your work. But at the same time, you do have a sense. Every writer has a sense when they hit their stride. And it doesn't matter what anyone else says. You know when you're in that state of grace and the writing is going well, and you know it's good. You just know it is. And if you could somehow relive that, keep that, harbor it, nurture it, it will make a difference to you. But don't give up. Someone's going to, I think you have to be clear, and you have to be honest, and you have to be quite genuine. And it's not a matter of copying people, it's a matter of listening, it's a matter of seeing, it's a matter of paying attention. And if you go at it honestly, with a genuine interest and curiosity, it should work for you. It should happen.
We're almost out of time, and we've talked a lot about your career and all the rest of it. But what do you do for fun? I know writing's fun, but it's still hard work. What do you do for fun?
I take pictures.
Oh, yeah, you're a really good photographer, actually.
Thank you. I enjoy photography, but it's a great extension of everything else that I do, because I'm looking for stories, and my pictures tell stories.
And you've had exhibitions.
Yes, and that's fun. But what do I do for fun? I go to movies by myself. I go to like the 5:45 movie when there's nobody in there, and I watch idiot movies, bad movies.
Okay, tell me an idiot movie.
Oh, I can't even, I don't even remember the title. But I go see everything. And that's what I do for fun, because that's the only time that I can suspend all concerns in the world. And I don't think about deadlines. I don't think about having to cater to anyone. It used to be, it's affected my diet, because I usually would order a big bag of popcorn, a hot dog, and a Diet Coke.
And when's your next book? Or what is it?
I'm working on 2 or 3. I don't know when it's going to happen, though.
We'll look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was great talking with you.
Awesome. That's all for this edition of The Right Stuff. To check out Marty Gervais' work, visit the Black Moss Publishing website. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to comment or send us a suggestion for a guest, please email me. See you next time.